As I'm sure many of you have heard, Shannon Sharpe, the podcasting host of Club Shay Shay, former athlete, professional athlete, former commentator, I believe on ESPN, Shannon Sharpe was accused of sexual assault in a lawsuit for $50 million that was filed by attorney Tony Busby on behalf of a 20-year-old Jane Doe. Okay? So if that name Tony Busby is sounding familiar to you, that's because this is the same attorney who went after P. Diddy. He's the same attorney that went after Jay-Z. And he's the same attorney that's been going after other black rappers in the game who have been accused of sexual assault. Okay? And this sexual assault lawsuit was filed on behalf of a 20-year-old. Now, guys, remember, Shannon Sharpe is how old? 56, okay? I'm sure some of you did not know that. So, Shannon Sharpe is 56 years old, and a 20-year-old has come out accusing him of sexual assault during their 2-year relationship that the 20-year-old described as tumultuous. Okay. Now, she came out as a Jane Doe, and Sharpe, he outed her. He outed her identity on the end. Isn't that illegal? Shouldn't that be legal? I'm sure it's not, because he's being, advised by his attorneys. So I'm sure it's not illegal, but like, it should be. What do you mean that I am, finally complaining against you as a Jane Doe, and then you go out there and you expose me to the public? That's ridiculous. So that's how we found out that this was a 20-year-old who had been in a relationship with Sharpe when she was 19 years old, and he was 55, y'all. And according to her, she was allegedly sexually assaulted by him. Now, here's the thing about this situation. One thing that I've noticed is a lot of people have been focusing on the age gap. A lot of people have been focusing on the race aspect of it, because this young woman is not black, and I believe she's either white or Latina or white Latina. And this young woman, so people have been focusing on like the race aspect of it. They've been talking about, quote, race play when it comes to this situation. They've been focusing on the age gap. But I feel like, which, I think are valid aspects of this discussion, but I feel like we're missing the biggest part of this discussion, which is this girl. And yes, I'm saying girl, because even though she's 20, I'm sorry, but you're a girl. You're at the very least a young woman, but you're pretty much just a girl. This 20-year-old young woman has accused this man of rape. And she has produced text messages, alleged text messages, but she's produced text messages backing up her claim. And I feel like everybody is glossing over this when it comes to the situation, to focus on the age gap and to focus on the race difference and the race play. And here's another black man getting involved with the white woman who's turned around to accuse him of rape. But I'm like, we are just bypassing the actual crux of this, which is that she's accused this man of rape. So the alleged victim, the 20-year-old young woman, she produced some text messages in response, which I think this is so interesting, in response to Shannon Sharpe releasing alleged text messages that he says are from the 20-year-old victim, alleged victim, from when they were still involved with each other. And he released all of these text messages that basically were trying to refute her claim of sexual assault by, because they were sexually explicit, and they referred to things things like BDSM and fetishes and rough play, if you will. And he released these, right, to try to obviously smear her and be like, look at her, look at this, look at this slut, that's how they be thinking, So it was to malign her reputation, but also it was to try to say, like, look at this, she likes rough play, she likes all, she likes this rough, this kinky talk and all this. So like, how could I sexually assault somebody who likes rough play? Which is just, we're gonna be talking about that, but it's like, hello. So he releases these, to try to poke holes into her story and to try to malign her character and her reputation. And she ends up punching back by releasing her own alleged text messages. And this is what the text messages said. She said, quote, "But I cried when you left because I begged you to put a condom on and not put it in my rear, and you didn't listen. I don't care what our history is. No means no, Shannon." This is one of the alleged text messages from Jane Doe to Shannon Sharpe. And then she also says, quote, "I don't know how to process this," end quote, to which Shannon Sharpe reportedly asked if he could call her later. Now, when somebody accuses you of something on a text and your response is, "Let me call you later," it's giving very much, I don't want a paper trail of what I'm going to say to you with regard to these accusations that you are lobbing onto me. Just saying. Just saying. So it's funny because Shannon Sharpe releases these text messages, outs this woman who was a Jane Doe when she filed this, releases these text messages thinking that he's going to bolster his credibility and bolster his narrative of the story and malign her character, and thus opening the door to text messages being released. And she fires back with text messages where she pretty much tells him to his face via text message, obviously, that she begged him to put a condom on. And obviously she's implying in this text message that he didn't, and that she begged him not to do things that she didn't consent to in the bedroom. And she even says, "I don't care what our history is. No means no." Jane Doe understands how consent works. And his response to that is, "I'm going to call you later so that we can talk this out and there's no record of no written record of what I got to say about this." And I feel like everybody seems to be glossing over this aspect, these text messages, and the fact that this girl has claimed that he violated her. He violated her consent, and she has proof of her speaking to him about it. Allegedly, all of these text messages that they've released are alleged, but nonetheless. And it's funny because people will always, what's one of the biggest refrains when accusers come out after the fact? Well, why didn't you say anything then? Why didn't you say no in the moment? Why didn't you say anything? How come you still hung out? She did. She has text message proof of her reaching out to Shannon Sharpe and telling him that he violated her consent. She did reach out. And Shannon Sharpe came out and refuted her claims